All right, so I see a few more people have joined us, and thank you so much for popping into our session here. We're going to go ahead and get started, as you'll learn in a moment. One of the things that I do at the events I'm a part of is I'm kind of the keeper of the run of show and the keeper of the time. So I'm a stickler for starting on time and kind of getting things rolling. So thank you so much for everyone who has joined us for this session. If you haven't already done so, please mute your microphones. We are going to open it up for questions at the end of some of our presentations, so you certainly can use the chat feature there and kind of interact with us throughout the program. We've got Kelsey who's monitoring that to make sure that we have all of our questions received and delivered to you all. But this session is called Auctions and Fundraising. As we kind of kick off Sports Philanthropy World 2020, this being the first day, we know there's so many people out there who are trying to get their arms around how do you fundraise in this new world. And in a moment, you're going to get a chance to hear from Lisa Tarshis from Evolve Giving. She's the vice president there. And we've also got Mike Polsky on the line from Polsky Sports Entertainment, who's got 2 decades of experience kind of helping put on fundraising events just like this. So we're going to take plenty of time to hear from them in just a moment. I will take some time to introduce myself first and then kind of touch on what I do and how we do it with some of the types of groups that you all are involved with to help make sure that we generate as much revenue as possible, and at the same time also put on the most memorable events possible. And it's a delicate balance between making sure that you're putting on great events and raising as much money as you can through this auctions and fundraising efforts that you all are trying to embark upon throughout your fundraising efforts. I will tell you that at my company, which is Alpert Enterprises, there are a total of 4 live auctioneers who work for the company. And when anyone asks what we do for a living, the easy answer is we're live auctioneers. But when we go into a little more detail about who we are and what we do, being an auctioneer is really 3rd on the list of things we want to talk about. And the other things that I'll tell you about are really the things that we would encourage you when trying to find someone to help run your event, that you would look into making sure that they do similar things to this, because we believe that being an auctioneer is a very special role that is not just about being a bid caller, especially in the charity fundraising space. If you were to have someone show up and just call the bids for your auction items, you are not doing your fundraising service the proper amount of, giving it the proper amount of due that it needs. So what we really pitch for is, in addition to being a live auctioneer, and as I mentioned, being a live auctioneer is 3rd on the things we want to talk about. We are fundraising and event consultants. Your auctioneer should be part of the planning process of the event, not only to make sure they come up with the best auction items and write the best descriptions and market your items appropriately, but also help you come up with those great auction items. Not only, utilizing people like Mike, who's going to talk about some of the auction items that you have a chance to go out and get, but also really working with your donors and supporters to say, hey, what kind of auction items can we get to help support this event where we don't have to spend a ton of money doing it? One of the examples I like to share about how we can help come up with great auction items is a guy who came to a meeting that I was hosting, and he put an autographed copy of a book on the table. And he said, I wanted to donate this to the auction. And I said, that's great. It'll probably go in our silent auction. It's an autographed copy of a book. It'll probably sell for $100 or $150. But depending on how well you know the author, we can turn this into a great live auction item, or an item that can raise you so much more money than that. And I said, but it all depends on how well you know the author. And he said, it's my brother's best friend. He'll do whatever we want him to do. I said, well, I want you to go back to your brother's best friend, the New York Times bestselling author, and ask him if in his next book, he will name a character after our auction winner. And not only did he agree to do that, but once we pitched the mission to him, what we're trying to do with it, he was so on board with it that he said, you know what? Why don't you fly the winner up to where I live, which was in New York City, put him up for 1 night in a hotel. He agreed to meet them for lunch. He said he would design the character around the person he had lunch with. And we sold that package for $15,000, right? So those are the types of things that once we know kind of what you're working with, and by we, I mean whoever you're working with in our space, that live auctioneer, that fundraising consultant space, to help you drive fundraising elements, to help you raise more money using the contacts and connections that you have. And then I would also tell you that your auctioneer should also work really hard to become vested in your mission. It's so important, right? We believe that people can see right through an auctioneer who doesn't believe and understand the mission that they're there raising money for. So please, not only feed them as much information as you can about your mission, introduce them to the people who are being supported by your mission. Introduce them to the families and the benefactors, if you will. Sometimes I even get calls and meetings with some of the top donors and sponsors because I want to be able to, when I'm up there on stage or if I'm in front of a camera on a virtual event, I want to be able to really represent that organization. And one of the best compliments I ever get is when people say, you know what, I thought you were with the organization, right? Because I become vested in that mission. So that's all part of that fundraising and event consultancy role that your auctioneer should fill for you. The second thing your auctioneer should be is an entertainer, right? It's not just about up there calling bids. You never want to put on just an auction. We put on an auction show. There's a statistic out there that says that 90% of people at a charity fundraising gala do not bid in the live auction. It is a daunting number for people who do what we do for a living, and ultimately what you all are trying to do at some of these events that you're putting on. What we want to make sure that we do is we take that 10% who is bidding, and of course get them to bid high and bid often. But it's really about that 90%. That 90% is the most important part of the room, because that's who we need to get during the bid from the heart. And the bid from the heart is just a part of the program where we say, hey, listen, we've given you auction items, we've given you opportunities to have raffles and drawings and sponsorships and ticket sales. Now we're going to come to the time of the program, we're just going to say, give me your money. Although we'll never phrase it that way. But ultimately, that's really important in making sure that you tee up that 90% of the room, and always keep that in mind. How are we going to get their money? The ones not bidding in the auction, how are we going to get their money? Put on an entertaining program. Never put on just an auction, put on an auction show. So first and foremost, fundraising and event consultant. Secondly, is that entertainer that leads up to that bid from the heart. We call it the bid from the heart. I'm sure you've heard it called the give, the ask, the cash call, the paddle raise. It's got 100 different names for it. But whatever it is, that should be the most important part of your fundraising part of the program. We're going to give them great opportunities to bid on things and donate during the auctions and the drawings and the memorabilia sales and things like that. But really, when it comes down to it, most of your fundraising elements should be focused on that bid from the heart part of the program. And then third and finally, I want to make sure that everyone realizes out there that being a licensed auctioneer, being an auctioneer is a licensed profession. In 38 states, if you're getting paid to do a live auction, you're supposed to be licensed to do it. Now, I tell people this not because I believe for one second that a police officer will ever break in the back of a charity fundraiser and stop it for using an unlicensed auctioneer. I just tell people this so that they realize that that you should get someone who's not necessarily a DJ who's doing this on the side. You know, you don't want to get someone who's got a public consignment shop and they do public auction on Fridays and charity fundraisers on Saturdays. Get a certified licensed benefit auctioneer, because that is the skill set and that is what they will make sure they bring to the table for you. And then lastly, is the role of your auctioneer as an MC. We always encourage groups to use us as their MC for the event as well. We don't have to be the only MC. We certainly know that there are celebrities out there. There's local newscasters. There's people on your board and committee who can probably handle the MC role. But utilize your auctioneer as part of the MC role, because it helps the fundraising portion of the program. It gives them a rapport with the room before they get up there and say, give me your money, right? So people have heard their voices, they've seen their faces. So I encourage you, even if it's just some of the MC dirty work, everything from when it's time to sit down for dinner, when does the silent auction close, those sort of things. Even to put your celebrity MC up on a huge pedestal, make sure they get that rousing introduction. Utilize your auctioneer for those sorts of things, because again, it helps your fundraising portion of the program there as well. So we have learned over the past 8 months, as we've been doing virtual fundraisers, we really believe that there are 4 keys to a good virtual fundraiser. I know there's a lot of people on here this afternoon who are interested in this virtual fundraising platform. And how do you do it? And how do we execute it? How do we make sure we make a lot of money doing it? Understand that as long as you continue to think about net revenue, you'll have great success with these events, right? There's so many less costs involved in putting on these events. There's no food you have to buy. There's no valet you have to pay for. There's no open bar you have to have. Understand that virtual events are generating a lot of money and a lot of revenue as long as you continue to think about net revenue. The 4 keys that we have put together, and you'll learn anytime anybody talks to me that we are big on our lists, right? And one of our lists is 4 keys to a successful virtual event. The first one is a good AV company. It's no longer just somebody who can set up some speakers and some lights and some uplights around the room and a projection screen. Your AV company is now a technology company. It's really a company who can make sure that they get the live stream up and the live stream goes out appropriately. You're really putting on a television show here. Think about it. Jerry Lewis had it right all along, right? Ultimately, he was doing these telethon style events 50, 60 years ago, and we're kind of replicating them now. We're using a lot more technology, but ultimately that is similar to what we're doing when we raise a lot of money. You have to have a good mobile bidding platform. And I know Lisa's going to talk about that in a little while, but ultimately you have to have a way to get the money. As much as we always say that we can go out there and get you the money, until you got the money, you don't got the money. So we encourage groups to have some sort of mobile bidding platform out there to help make sure that they get the money. It doesn't have to be one of the really high-end mobile bidding companies with all the bells and whistles and bidding against each other. But even if it's just a link that you give people that you can get their money, you have to keep that in mind. How are you going to get people's money through that. The third thing is you have to have a good solid run of show, right? And the run of show is now a television script, right? You put together a TV script because you are putting on a television show. Never should you talk about the fact that you're going to do a Zoom fundraiser, right? Please don't use that word, because people are going to be like, oh, another Zoom? I don't want to be on another Zoom. But ultimately, if you market this as a television show, in fact, you want people to watch the show on their smart TVs or on their big screen laptops. Their bidding and their donating will be done from their phones, but ultimately, please put together a good run of show and also have someone who can run it. Have a compelling host who can really run your program and really be engaging with your audience, somebody who knows how to work and play to the camera. And then fourth and finally, and this is probably the one that everyone is having the most trouble with, because quite candidly, the first three, you can just hire someone to go do. Get a good AV technology company, get a good mobile bidding company, and get a good host and MC and auctioneer to help you put together that run of show. The fourth one is the least tangible. It's the one that you can't put your arms around, and we really have to put forth a great plan internally to execute it. And it's, you got to get people to watch. And it's not only getting just anyone to watch, it's getting people to watch who also know it's a benefit and know it's a fundraiser and know there's an expectation that when they watch, they will hopefully, not hopefully is one way to put it, but we expect them to give, right? We are inviting them to watch our fundraiser, our benefit. So everything you do to market this event should say it is put on by this, this is the name of the event and it's benefiting this charity. So everything should be a benefit. I love when groups come out and they say, hey, listen, here's our top 2 auction items. And also wait till you hear our Bid from the Heart story about Little Sally. And here's Little Sally, and there's a picture of her. And we're going to tell you Little Sally's story. And she is a success story. And certainly using Little Sally and her success story, not the woe is us, look how much trouble she's in, about how terrible things are for her. It's when Little Sally becomes a success story, then you feature her in your program. So I encourage you to think about those 4 things. Good AV and technology. Number 2 is that mobile bidding. Number 3 is the run of show and host. And number 4 is the great, a great opportunity to get people to watch. And we really believe it's a grassroots effort. Pick up the phone, call your donors, put a phone tree together, ask them to call 2 or 3 other people, and hopefully you can put together a good virtual event that way. So that is it for my time. And I know that because I watched the clock here throughout the entire thing. And I mentioned I'm a stickler for time, and we're going to make sure that we move through it. We're going to take time for each, Mike, Lisa, and myself to present to you all as I just did there. And then ultimately, as we mentioned before, go ahead and open it up to everybody else who has any questions that they want to have. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lisa from Evolve Giving. And she's got more than 15 years of non-for-profit experience. She partners with organizations to develop effective fundraising campaigns and build successful teams. She believes events are a core component of any successful fundraising program, and that a well-executed mission-focused event has the ability to transform participants. It's so important to weave that mission into your story throughout your program. With her help, her clients have raised millions of dollars, deepening their engagement and expanding their donor base. Her team does everything from high-level advising and strategy development to soup to nuts planning and execution in both the event and general fundraising space. Ladies and gentlemen, now our crowd is growing. I love to see the new boxes show up and everyone who's joined the Zoom session. I present to you the Vice President of Evolve Giving, Lisa Tarshis. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Jason. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for being here today. Jason, I think you teed it up in an awesome way, right? And talked a little bit about what it is that we are looking to do with our fundraising event. And so I'm going to dive a little bit more into how do we actually raise money through a virtual event. And then Mike will talk a little bit more sort of about the auction piece of how we raise money through virtual events and what's working and what's not working. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my screen over here. And so fundraising in a virtual world. So there's tons of possibilities, and depending on what it is that you're trying to do, a lot of different ways that you can go here, right? And one of the most important things I think for us to think about is how and when are we making asks? So this, I'm sure, looks very familiar to all of you, right? You can make asks before your event, during your event, and after your event. And the same general rules apply as they do if you're planning an in-person event as well, right? So you want to have a solid sponsorship strategy. You will still raise the most dollars through sponsorship, which you'll secure before your event. And actually in a virtual world, there's amazing ways and opportunities to really highlight your sponsors and to give them that, to give them that presence in a different way. So really think about how you can tailor your benefits to a virtual world for your sponsors. Ask early and don't be afraid to ask. As Jason said, people are still giving right now. There's been some awesome studies that have come out about how giving's up this year. So I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we worked with a lot of organizations who are really nervous to sort of make asks. They felt that people had been laid off and were, not in the best place. But the reality is that people want to feel like they're doing something good and they want to feel like they're making a difference. And so this is actually a really good time to be out there asking for money. The other thing in the pre-event space that we're seeing in the virtual event world is that some people are doing peer-to-peer fundraising. Some people are hosting these virtual tables online. They're asking people to give to their tables. They're setting individual fundraising goals. There's a lot of different ways to engage your audience and to engage your board, your committee, your participants in helping you to raise money. I'm going to skip around and go to post-event for a minute. So the same rules generally apply here too in post-event fundraising as they do before. You want to make sure there's a way for people to give, whether that's through your website, whether in your post-event email, you're sending out a link so people can fulfill their gifts, that you're reminding people who maybe didn't get a chance to give the night of to make their gifts. And, and that you're really following up to collect all of that. So where I think a virtual event and an in-person event are different on the giving front is really what happens during the event. And that's sort of where I want to spend the bulk of our time today. So how and when to make an ask during an event, right? We want to determine the appropriate ways for people to give during the event. So are they giving through an auction? Is it live? Is it silent? Do you have some sort of raffle? Are you making some sort of ask that you might make in the room that night, right? And then people are giving. And so what is the mechanism then by which they're going to give? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute as well. And a lot of this depends on your audience, right? So you can do text to pledge. If you have an older audience, you might consider having phone lines open and letting people call in. If you have a trivia night or a game night, right? Perhaps you're letting people buy sort of like a free pass or a get out of jail free card where they can skip if they don't know a question. Or if you're having a poker tournament, can people rebuy in? So you'll want to think about all of this in advance and determine the different ways that people will be able to give during your event. In the same way that you would in the room, it's really important to create a pause after your ask. And in some ways, this is more important in a virtual world than it is in person. Because if you just make your ask and then you're asking people to even text in a gift or to go to a website or however they're going to fulfill that gift, right? And you just keep talking, people want to listen to what it is that you're saying. They don't want to miss out on a really compelling part of your program. So instead, they're focusing on you and they're not actually taking the time to go and make that gift or to go and fulfill that gift. So in the same way you would in a room, make your ask and then sort of pause and allow people to fill out their pledge card or to pick up their phone and text in or to fulfill their gift. You want to create the same sort of thing in a virtual world. It's also really important to consider the timing of the ask, right? So we know in virtual events that people are signing on. Some people are staying the entire time. Some people are not staying the entire time. So what is the appropriate sort of space within your program to make your ask? And are you just making the ask once? Are you reminding people later in the program that if they haven't had a chance to give, they can? Are you having a little ticker across the bottom that's showing gifts that are coming in all throughout? So people are sort of feeling that excitement all throughout. Are you doing some sort of thermometer, right? How do you want to do that? And this sort of leads into the next thing that I was saying as well, which is support your ask with visuals. So again, you can have a thermometer, you can have a ticker. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, right? But to the extent that people can visually see that gifts are coming in, this breeds excitement. So think about if you're in the room one night and you're having a paddle raise, right? And you see all of these people sort of raising their hands and raising their paddles. That creates this sense of peer pressure and that creates the sense of excitement that I also want to be part of this. Visuals in this sense do the exact same thing. The other thing that I think is really important is to think about how you are thanking people as their gifts come in. So can you be, if you have a chat function, can you be typing into the chat and thanking people? Can you be verbally thanking people, right? So thank you to Jason and to Mike and to Alex and to John for making their gifts. We really appreciate it, right? And you could just sort of be saying names as things are coming in to thank them as well. So people feel really good about that when they get thanked. And that also, again, then encourages other people to give as well. So let's think about platforms. So when we're choosing a platform, there's a few pieces we want to keep in mind. So we need to understand the ways that we'll be raising money throughout the event, which we just talked about. So for example, if you're having an auction, if you're doing peer-to-peer, if you're just letting people sort of text in, all of this is going to inform the platform that you choose. we want to think about the importance of database integration. So some of my clients say, well, it has to go directly into our database. I don't want to do an export or an import, or I don't want to have to deal with any of that. So if that's something that's really important to you, that is going to influence the different platforms that you can or can't use. And then if you're doing anything that has any sort of specialty, right? So if you are doing an auction, for example, you want to always choose a platform that allows for that. So I always say choose the thing that's sort of the most complicated or the most specialized, and then look at the platforms around that piece of it, and start there, right? So there's tons of platforms out there that allow you to just make a gift. There's fewer platforms out there that also accommodate an auction. So if you're going to do an auction, first and foremost, you want to make sure the platform you're choosing allows people to bid, right? Because any platform that allows people to bid will also allow them to make a gift, but it's not true. The reverse of that is not true. Couple platforms to consider, things that I like and wanted to just throw a few names out there for you. So if you're doing something auction related, GiveSmart's really great, all in one, has really good bidding technology and also text to pledge. You can do things that are both bidding and buy now. OneCause, pretty similar. Galabid is a little bit less expensive, has some fewer bells and whistles, but also definitely something to look into depending on your budget. If you are not having an auction and you're just sort of thinking about how do I connect donations online, Give Lively is actually free to nonprofits and allows you to create a code that people can text into. They can make their gifts. You can show a thermometer. It is really easy to use, really easy to set up. Definitely something worth considering. Snowball, sort of similar in that sense. And then again, you want to think about your database partners. So if that database integration is something that's really important to you, every database has certain partners and platforms that they work with related, directly to that database. And so you might want to choose something that directly connects in that space. And that is, I will leave it there and turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. So I'm Mike Polsky here in New York City. My company is Polsky Sports and Entertainment, and we specialize in collaborating with charities and nonprofits to raise money via silent, live, and online auctions through items on no-risk consignment. So be it sports or entertainment memorabilia, or various trips and experiences, or jewelry and handbags for women, something for everyone at a variety of price points. So today, I'd like to focus on auction items, what's been selling well, trends, and then also just tips on how to get your bidding activity up and best practices. So we've been finding that the sweet spot for price points in auctions in the virtual setting is basically $75 to $400. Obviously, you want to offer higher ticket packages, and that's the advantage of hosting an online auction, is that with a lot of platforms, there's no cap to how many items you could list. So you certainly want to have a majority of low to mid price point items, but sprinkle in some high price point items as well. It's just the state of the economy right now with spending habits, that $75 to $400 price point is where we're seeing. Now, fast forward a couple months towards the holiday time, when people are buying gifts, you'll probably see that dollar amount increase a little bit. So you could definitely add some more high price point packages. Anyone see that World Series last night? This is the Sports World Philanthropy Conference. We like to, as a company, we like to offer hot market items, but we do see them selling a lot in the auction. So obviously the Dodgers are on the cusp of, they're up 3-2. So having a Clayton Kershaw autographed baseball might serve you well. Kobe Bryant sales were up. So earlier in the year, obviously it was unfortunate passing, but his legacy, lasts. So we're seeing that now in third and fourth quarter. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, the documentary on Netflix during the quarantine, Michael Jordan items sell really well. Mike Tyson is making a comeback this November. So we've seen Mike Tyson autograph boxing gloves and that nature go well. And then on the celebrity end with collectibles, if someone passed away, unfortunately, the notoriety and the awareness increases. So with Black Panther, we've seen Chadwick Boseman Black Panther collages sell really well. So those are some of the hot market items, both in sports and entertainment collectibles that have been selling. In this setting, virtual experiences have done really well. So anything from a virtual private bartending and mixology lesson, or virtual dance lesson for 4 people with a former NBA dancer or a former Rockette. Cooking and baking lessons are doing really well. We've seen in a school setting, if it's a school auction, kids want to get in the kitchen and bake. Also for schools, chess, private guitar lessons, singing lessons, comedy show, magic show, experiences like that, we see the numbers getting up. Golf foursomes, both in a traditional golf outing format or virtual, we see that golf outings and golf foursomes are selling well locally, but also exotic golf courses across the country. Tickets, post-COVID ticket sales, will continue to be strong. A lot of donors may have season tickets, so we're seeing that they're kind of extending the expiration. So it's for the 2021 season as opposed to the 2020 season. So tickets are still really strong and great offerings at auctions. Liquor and wine packages are always favorites. Fitness, people are stuck at home right now, so private, yoga or fitness sessions, Peloton bikes are red hot. So if you're able to acquire a Peloton bike for a great price and show great value, be sure to offer that. And then trips. Right now, we see that in a live auction format, but also online in the silent auction, that domestic trips are a way to get that $1,000 price point. So we're seeing in an open air setting, so trips to Newport, Rhode Island, Lake Tahoe. There are some regions of wine country in California that are open, some are still closed because of the fires and COVID. But trips are always very popular. And now I'd just like to touch a little bit on tips for best bidding activity and best practices. We like to see generally about 50 to 150 items is a great range in online auctions. Most platforms don't give you a cap, but you don't want it to be a flea market. So I don't recommend offering 1,000 items, but I also don't recommend offering only 20 items where you're leaving money on the table. So the sweet spot for item offering is about 100 to 150 items at a variety of price points. And when listing, we always like to encourage listing the most attractive pieces scattered throughout the auction listing. So you want to have some in the beginning, some in the middle, and some at the end, so that when people are bidding and going back to the auction and scrolling through, that they, in order to get to their Kobe Bryant piece at the end of the auction, they have to scroll through all the items. So the probability of them seeing something else in the auction that they like and bidding on and spending money is increased. So scatter those. I can't impress upon you and the committee members and the board members enough to bid early in the process. So whether it's a 2-week online auction, a 3-day online auction, a 1-day online auction, if that committee member is going to spend money at some point during the auction, we encourage them to bid early. No one likes to be first to the party. So it's also it's like that in traditional in-person events if you have bid sheets, if people aren't seeing names on bid sheets or online on the mobile app, they're less likely to bid right then and now. They're probably going to wait to the end and swoop in and try to get it at a better price and not really spend money. So we see numbers going up when people bid early in the auction. Another great tip is to lean on the auction platform. Some divulging information, some don't, but try to get the auction bidding results and the names after post-event, because contacting that runner-up who missed out on an auction item by $10 or $20 maybe and would still happily buy it at the winning price, make that, if you have their contact information, make a courtesy call post-event, ask for that sale, and that's an easy way that you can double and triple your money. So try to get the bidding results after the event and reach out to those second and third place winners. Attractive descriptions in the listing. in a virtual setting, you can't touch and feel an item. So, try to really create a great listing, great wording to entice someone to win. You want to have great imagery, so a great picture of that item or trick or experience or piece of jewelry, and then have a great worded listing for it. Consignment versus donations. So obviously, we try to encourage committee members and board members to get as much as you can donated as possible. So make those calls, send those emails, make the asks, like Lisa said, because that's great. That's pure profit. But where consignment makes sense is really to kind of fill in the gaps of what you don't have. What category are you missing? Do you need a sports item? Do you need Broadway tickets? Do you need a trip to Italy? Making a percentage of something is better than making a percentage of nothing. And that really lends well in a virtual auction where if you work with a platform that doesn't have a cap to listings, you can list more items and try to hit those higher dollar amount with higher packages. Maybe it's a trip. And like Jason alluded to, when making asks, try to get creative. So maybe someone's going to, in the board of the committee is going to donate an autographed cookbook, but do they know that chef? And can you bolster that package and create a multi-$1,000 live auction package? And that's really how, if you want to move the needles, it really depends on your fundraising goal. Obviously, people want to make more money year over year. Some have more aggressive goals than others, but getting creative with packages, both donated package and consignment packages, can really get the numbers up. List to the audience. So if it's a school event, there's obviously kids aren't bidding, maybe they're bidding, that's using their credit card. Parents are buying for their kids, but they're also buying for each other. So for a school setting, I would list those, cool kid experiences, dance lessons, singing lessons, chess lessons. It's also what not to list. So I recently had a domestic violence event, and where I normally would, one of my best-selling items is a Mike Tyson autographed boxing glove. And once again, he's fighting this November. He's going to be all over TV and the media. It's a guaranteed seller. However, it's not topical for this domestic violence event. It doesn't go well. So just be cognizant of the items that you do offer and the items that you probably shouldn't offer. And then lastly, in closing, social media plugs. You're paying for an online platform, maximize exposure. So, a big fall or fail for a lot of organizations that I see is that they pay the money for a one cause or hand bid, and there's the initial email blast when the auction launches, and then there's one reminder 12 hours before it closes. I don't see anything on Facebook. I don't see anything via Twitter or Instagram with the auction link, and you want to get eyeballs on it. So please, plug social media. Plug the link on social media because that will really help get your numbers up. So thank you.
All right, Mike, thanks so much for that. I feel like I teed Lisa up so well and gave her this big rousing introduction. I didn't get a chance to do yours. So I'm going to give you a little bit of love right now, make sure everyone knows exactly who they just heard from. I know he kind of introduced himself at the beginning, but Mike has got 20 years of experience in the sports marketing industry. He spent 8 as the executive director of charity fundraising at Steiner Sports, where he worked with hundreds of philanthropic organizations like Make-A-Wish, American Cancer Society, Derek Jeter's Turn 2 Foundation, helping to raise millions of dollars. His current company, Polsky Sports Entertainment, is a leader in that category. They offer authentic autographed and celebrity sports memorabilia, fantasy experience, exotic trips, jewelry, women's accessories on consignment for live and silent and online auctions and charity fundraising events. You obviously got a great sense of what he does from what he shared right there, but certainly you can also follow him on Instagram at it's @Team Polsky is his handle there, and he's the CEO and founder of Polsky Sports Entertainment. So Mike, thanks so much for that information and kind of guiding us down that way. I do see that Kelsey has kind of teed you all up in the chat and offered up to anybody who has any questions about fundraising events. It's really cool to see some names of people who have joined us here who I know from some of the events that we do. So hello to all of you and welcome to this session. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left. We certainly have lots more content that we can share with you as necessary, but want to open it up. If there are any questions, we encourage you to kind of put it in the chat box and we will address those, whether it be about the actual fundraising that we do at an event. And Lisa talked a lot about how you do an ask, and certainly didn't expand that much on what she does before an event to help raise money through sponsorships and that sort of thing, but can can answer those questions, and then a Mike specifically about the auction items. So any questions out there, we will let you all kind of drop them in the chat box if you have them. I will continue on as we look to see if any questions come in, though, and talk a little bit. I know, Mike, you talked about the trips, and people initially were so concerned about what trips are going to do in the auction format, and we have certainly seen them continue to sell, right? People know that vacations are not going away. They're just taking a little hiatus, and ultimately, as long as you have a long enough expiration date on them, you're going to be in great shape. Certainly the typical is 1 year. We have some organizations who are getting them extended to 2 years, even 3 years in some situations. In June, we sold a trip to Tuscany for $9,000. And this is when Tuscany was shut down, because ultimately no one believes that Tuscany is going away. It's just wasn't available to go to right then. I did an event, and I actually see some of the people online from this event, but we did 51 live auction items. It's a totally different animal from any other event that probably many of you are involved with. But in that, of those 51 items, 17 of them were cruises. And we sold 17 cruises in May, right? So again, these are all things that people know that as long as the expiration date is far enough out, you can still make some great, generate some great revenue with vacations and with travel. So you're doing great there as well. I will also touch.
Jason,
Yeah, please.
Can I add one thing to that? So I'm in Chicago, and an interesting thing that we're seeing here too, especially with some of the day schools and, organizations that are downtown and in populations where people live downtown. And this is probably true in any big city, right? Is even local trips are doing really well. So people have a cabin in Wisconsin or a lake house in Michigan, and families who are sort of stuck in their homes right now and are looking just for a little bit more space or a way to sort of get out are buying those types of vacations also for way more money than they would normally go for, and using them more quickly because they're just sort of looking for a little bit of a change of scenery with everyone being more stuck inside.
Yep, I love that. I love that. And then listen, Mike also touched on, the sports and celebrity collectibles and memorabilia and that sort of thing. And what we love to do is we like to take items that Mike often has access to, right? The autographed baseballs and the autographed boxing gloves and that sort of thing, and find ways to package it with the experiences, right? And a lot of times, if you can get to a team or you can get to a celebrity or an athlete who has, you just want access to them. I recently did a thing where we had an autographed stick from the captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning who, just won the Stanley Cup. And what we did, we packaged it with a watch party for an event for a game next year at the arena for a road game. So you're able to bring 10 people. You're going to be the only people at the arena. They're going to put the game up on the Jumbotron screen. They're going to have food and drinks there for you. They're going to have their mascot come out. They're going to have a former player join you. So we're doing the autographed stick with that experience. And those are the types of things that kind of, when you package them together, it does really well. So, and Mike, I know whether you have an experience you want to share with the group about, how to tie in a unique celebrity experience. I know you can probably also just direct them to the All-In Challenge if they just want a list of 50 different unique items that they can use to get those creative juices flowing, the types of things they can get, right?
Correct. Yeah, Fanatics had a great, it's continuing, the All-In Challenge. With some fantastic prizes. We this past weekend I was with Rudy Rudiger of Notre Dame and the movie Rudy, and we had him do a couple of recorded messages as well as live phone calls with fans, which went over really well. And I'm certainly going to reach out to Rudy come springtime leading up to St. Patrick's Day. There's obviously tons of not only Irish people but Notre Dame fans out there. So kind of utilizing my access, creating a package, and then offering it and raising money is a perfect combination. But yeah, the All-In Challenge is a great platform where you can get some great packages.
Yeah, and I mean, they had things on there like, again, I just used it to help generate some ideas in my head. They auction off the opportunity for the auction winner to be featured on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. Right? I mean, there were really some amazing things in there that you can do for those sort of things. But listen, it's also about thinking outside the box. And I'm based out of Tampa, Florida, so I use the Tampa references as a lot. We do most of our work in Florida. But the Tampa Bay Lightning recently did a $50,000 gift to an organization that I was working with. And we positioned it as, they wanted to do it as a match. I don't love matches. That's a whole other theory that we can go into another time, but they wanted to position it as a match, and they wanted to get 10 people at $5,000 each to match them up to their 50,000. And what we asked them to do, I'm working on now, is for every one of those 10 people who makes that donation, they're going to get a Lightning player or alumni to call them and thank them and personally do it. So again, there's all these sorts of things that once you have access to the celebrities and the sports teams and the movie stars and the Mike Tysons and that sort of thing, you can really turn some great things. And listen, don't get so hung up on it has to be a Stanley Cup champion or it has to be, you know, Michael Jordan. The local sheriff in some cities is a local celebrity. The mayor is sometimes a local celebrity. So you can usually tie in some of those people to drive some great auction packages on those sort of things. We've got about 4, 5, 6 minutes left. I know we started 2 minutes after our time, so we'll go a few minutes extra. Still kind of watching that chat to see if anybody has anything that they want to throw out. And I would tell you too, that we're true believers that there are no new ideas left in this world, right? Ultimately, everyone is just kind of sharing with each other and stealing from each other and borrowing from each other. And we're certainly okay with that. So, you know, not only do we steal ideas from people, but we allow people all the time, whether it's through a session like this, or you come to one of our events and you steal one of our ideas and you take it to their event, because listen, high tides raise all ships, right? So we want the industry to be successful. And we want great things to be happening at all your events. So if you have something in here that you all have done that is unique that you want to share, we would certainly encourage you to kind of share that with us as well. In the last few minutes here, and again, I'm oftentimes paid to talk, so I could talk for another 2 or 3 hours about this, but I certainly want to give Lisa and Mike a chance to tee up anything else they've got before we wrap it up. Anything from you, Lisa?
I think we covered a lot. I think there's a lot more ground to cover. But right. Yeah, there's a few more sessions I know during this conference as well on virtual events. So we'll cover some other topics, I think, in those too.
Gotcha. How about you, Mike?
In closing, I would also just kind of pivot off of Lisa with making the ask. People are generally happy to give. So not only in asking for donations, certainly in this COVID environment, it's even that much more tough, but just ask. People are happy to give, and a lot of people are happy to spend money. So, you know, make the ask. Don't be bashful.
The number one reason why people don't give it to charity fundraisers is because they're not asked. So please ask. Please keep doing it. So I appreciate that as well. So I will share one other final send off for you all, if you will, and let you know that one thing that we also like to tag on to all of our auction packages, any opportunity we get, is that experience, right? And one of the easiest ones, people oftentimes shy away from doing art in a live auction format. I'm one that will lean into doing art because as long as there's a meet and greet with the artist, and normally the artist loves that opportunity, because if you tell them that our auction winner who just paid XYZ for your art is going to bring 9 friends with them to your studio, to your gallery, it's their opportunity now. The artist can look at it as an opportunity to market themselves better. They have new people to try to sell to outside of the one that they donated to your event. So again, that's one of those things just to kind of keep in mind. Every time you get a donation, every time you get an item, think about what can we do experiential outside of that hard good that can help us raise additional funds for the event. So again, as Mike said, and as Lisa has leaned into, ask. Go out and get things as much as you can donated. I know that Mike and Lisa and myself are all about brainstorming ideas, and whether it's an idea that you have that you're not quite sure how to turn into a great fundraising element, all of our information can be found on the presenter portal on the site for the conference here. So please don't be afraid to reach out, just brainstorm with us, talk to us, and see how we can help you raise money and increase the success and revenue of your events during the fundraising event. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, on behalf of myself, Jason Alpert, and Mike Polsky, and Lisa Tarshis, we appreciate you joining us here today. And actually, as I do that, what I will offer up, and I'm guessing Mike and Lisa, if you got a few minutes too, if anyone does want to pop up a question in the chat, I know our time is up, but I'm going to kind of stay on here until I see most people log off in case somebody wants to pop up a question. And we can all just awkwardly stare at the screen. That'll be great.
That sounds great. Yeah.
So I just got a message that said there are questions in the feed loop. I don't know if you can see them. I don't have access to that. If anybody does and wants to share them, either verbally or just in the text box, please do.
I wonder if the feed loop was going just to the host, which was Kelsey, who left. So if you asked questions in the feed loop, we're so sorry we haven't been able to see them. If you want to just type them to everyone in the chat, then we're keeping an eye on that, and we're happy to answer them there, or to verbally answer them if we see them come through.
Hi, this is Christine. I don't know if you guys could hear me, but I could see the chat. So I think Kari I had a question.
Yeah, Christine, if you can see that and either want to share it with us verbally or want to put it in the chat to answer it.
I'll go ahead and read it to you just because the connection on the website is super choppy. So I was able to log into my Zoom.
Ah, okay.
And now the website's being really slow. She said, as far as auctions go, is it easy for a football player to come up with collectibles and memorabilia? What would be something that an esports player may be able to donate to an auction aside from their special gaming platform?
Yeah. You want to touch on that, Mike?
Sure, that's interesting. So an esports player who wants to donate something to an auction, but not from the esports environment. Certainly, if they know of any other athletes, non-esports players, they can ask for an autographed item. Conversely, if they know of any celebrity esports players, maybe from the FaZe Clan group, maybe they could, offer a session, a gaming session with them, or sit in during one of the, when things come back, one of the major esports, esports games and contests. That would lend well with the youth market. I mean, esports is blowing up. It's tough to monetize that because there aren't many things that you could offer other than, maybe an autographed gaming console. But I don't know if that answers the question, because I don't know how the question was worded.
Could they offer an experience where you're getting one-on-one time with this esports athlete who is probably an expert in a particular type of esport, right? And maybe they can share tips or tricks, or they could watch somebody else play. They could watch the winner play, and then they could help the winner to learn different, teach the winner different skills or something like that, so that they can continue to advance their skills.
Yeah. I certainly see that coming. And listen, it's not always about the esports player or whoever the celebrity is or the athlete. It's oftentimes about who they know also too, right? I mean,
Right.
see who they can loop in and you know, maybe it's an experience where this esports celebrity is in a city with a sports team and he says, listen, I'm a fan of that sports team and I'm going to, with the auction, I agree to go to a Dodgers game with them or something.
Just elaborate on that, whether it's esports or any other category, access and thinking about your network and who you know and who you can ask. Maybe you do ask that local policeman to do a ride along on a shift, or maybe you go to your local firehouse and you know, offer a tour and the kids slide down the pole, or you know, maybe you're at Italy in Chicago and get a private cooking lesson with one of Mario Batali's disciples. So kind of think about your internal Rolodex, who you know and who you could ask to curate cool experiences, meet and greets, things like that.
I'm just glad that Christina popped up because we got 15 people here. I don't know if they're really there or not. So thank you, Christina. We'll take that. You know, I had an organization, they came to me and they said that they've got the head of an advertising agency who is on their committee or on their board. And he wanted to do something, but, you know, and I had a call with him and he basically said, listen, we don't want to donate billboard time and radio space. That's not what, or I'm back to mix those up, billboard space or radio time. You know, what can we do? And as I told him, it's not necessarily about what he can do, it's what his clients can do. So we sat down and we looked at his list of clients, and one of his best clients that he handled the national television commercial account for Party City. And what we decided to ask him to ask Party City is if they would let us auction off the opportunity for a kid to be featured in a national Party City television commercial. And he agreed, Party City agreed, and we sold it, and we added a limo ride and a makeover and a few other things, and it sold for $9,000. Again, so those are the types of things that it's not always about who you're talking to, but who are you talking to, who they know, they can help you drive, you know, some revenue. All right, so apparently that question came from Carrie Doyle about the esports. So she says, thank you. Well, we will say you're welcome.
Thanks, Carrie.
Any other questions out there?
All right. I feel like we've given fair warning, don't you think? Yeah. Ultimately, as I mentioned before, I think we are all available to you as necessary. So all of our information is found in the speaker portal. And I'm going to go ahead and log off now. But thank you, everyone, for your time. And Lisa and Mike, thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.